Hi, I'm Andrew Huberman. I'm a neuroscientist and professor who studies how the brain works, specifically how our brains change and adapt based on experience, how we see and process the world visually, and how we can use this understanding to improve things like focus, motivation, and mental health. My goal is to take the latest neuroscience discoveries and make them accessible and actionable so people can use their brains and bodies more effectively every day. What if I told you that changing the way you speak to yourself for just 7 days could rewire your brain? That it could improve your focus, reduce anxiety, build discipline, and increase your drive not through external motivation, but through internal transformation? This isn't a self-help gimmick, this is neuroscience. The language you use even silently internally has the power to change your biology. Over the next 7 days, I want you to talk to yourself like this, not with doubt, not with criticism, but with deliberate, targeted self-communication designed to unlock the best version of you. You don't need to wait for motivation to begin. That's one of the greatest lies we've been told. You begin, and the motivation follows. You act, and then the chemistry shifts. The brain is designed to respond to movement, not just physical, but cognitive. Every time you tell yourself, I move forward now, even if you don't feel like it, you create a small feedback loop in the brain that reinforces initiative. These loops don't require huge wins, they require repetition. Talk to yourself in a way that triggers these small wins. You don't have to yell or hype yourself up. In fact, calm, steady internal dialogue is often more effective than loud, frantic affirmations. Say to yourself, I know what I need to do, and I'm doing it. This tells your brain that you're safe to act, that no further debate is needed, that you've already made the decision. The brain likes resolution. When you eliminate unnecessary internal negotiations, you conserve cognitive energy. That energy can then be directed toward action. Too many people waste valuable bandwidth arguing with themselves. They say, should I go to the gym? Should I write this down? Should I get out of bed now or later? Every one of those questions pulls power away from the motor systems and toward indecision. But when you speak with clarity, I'm getting up now, or I'm writing for 20 minutes, you immediately narrow the scope of attention. The prefrontal cortex stops spinning and starts steering. That's what self-talk is, steering. It's not just about confidence, it's about direction. When you direct your attention, you train your nervous system to reduce noise and amplify signal. Do this daily, even hourly, and you're no longer a prisoner of random thought loops. You're shaping thought itself. Your thoughts are not commands. Your emotions are not facts. They are suggestions, and you get to decide which ones to act on. That internal voice, it can be tuned, it can be trained. You don't need to eliminate negative thoughts to move forward. That's another myth. You simply need to decide which thoughts get your attention, which ones deserve your action. Every time you choose to talk to yourself with intention, you weaken the power of randomness. This is what high performers do. They don't wait to feel good. They don't wait to be calm. They initiate structure. They create the conditions for calm through deliberate attention and deliberate self-talk. When you wake up, your brain is in a highly plastic, suggestible state. That window, the first 10 to 20 minutes, is critical. If you reach for your phone and scroll, you're conditioning your brain to seek novelty and react. But if you begin by directing your thoughts, by saying something as simple as I'm in charge of today, you're signaling the hippocampus and the basal ganglia to begin building patterns of control. The systems that govern habit don't care about how motivated you are, they care about what you repeat. So repeat internal statements that signal agency. Say, I initiate, I don't wait, I move toward the task. Even when it feels robotic at first, the nervous system is listening. And if it hears the same input daily, it builds wiring that supports it. You don't need to believe every word right away. What matters is consistency. Your brain loves patterns. Repeated speech becomes embodied belief. Repeated speech becomes identity. This is how we train focus. This is how we build confidence. not through ego, not through delusion, but through structure and discipline, beginning with what you say to yourself when no one is listening. That's the real training ground, not when people are watching, but when you're alone and you choose to talk to yourself in a way that promotes movement. That's when you build internal leadership. The nervous system is always listening. The circuits that govern effort, motivation, and alertness, these circuits respond to framing. If you frame a task as punishment, your dopamine systems withdraw. If you frame a task as opportunity, challenge, or self-creation, those same systems engage. This is not positive thinking, this is chemical alignment. Say, this is where I get stronger. Say, this pressure is where I grow. These statements are not magic, but they do trigger shifts in how the brain evaluates risk and reward. When you interpret discomfort as growth, the brain responds with approach signals rather than avoidance. And that's what we're aiming for, a bias toward action. There are going to be moments where your mind resists, where it says, I can't, or this is too hard. That's the perfect moment to intervene with self-talk, not to deny the difficulty, but to choose your response. Say, this is hard and I'm built for it. That sentence does two things. First, it acknowledges reality. Second, it orients your identity toward capability. The brain learns from repetition. If you feed it that sentence every day, especially during adversity, it will begin to treat difficulty as a trigger for resilience rather than retreat. And that is how mental toughness is built, not by eliminating hardship, but by framing it with language that supports your growth. You're not pretending, you're not faking positivity, you're training signal pathways that favor progress. The same way you can train a muscle to contract on demand, you can train your attention and effort systems to activate through speech. This takes time, yes, but not years. It takes intention, repetition, and consistency. 7 days is enough to build the neural foundations of a new pattern. After that, it's maintenance and expansion. The first week is about initiation. After that, you're layering, stacking, reinforcing. But you have to start with precision. Avoid vague self-talk. Don't say, I hope I get through today. Say, here's what I'll do today. Specificity matters. It gives the brain a map. Without a map, the nervous system reverts to reactivity. But when you provide structure through words, you give your brain targets, and the brain loves targets. Dopamine, the molecule of pursuit, is released not when you achieve something, but when you're moving toward something clearly defined. So speak in terms of targets. Today I finish this task. Now I make the call. Next I write for 10 minutes. That kind of language engages pursuit circuitry. It creates psychological momentum. When you feel stuck, don't narrate the stuckness. That only cements it. Don't say, I'm overwhelmed, repeatedly, not because you should deny it, but because repetition equals reinforcement. Instead, say, I'm recalibrating. That small shift changes how your brain interprets your state. Overwhelmed feels static. Recalibrating feels active. That shift from passive to active is huge. It flips your internal chemistry from defense to offense. Same with fatigue. Don't say, I'm exhausted, over and over. Say, I'm recharging, I'm pacing. Language like that signals to the brain that energy is on the way, that recovery is part of the process. The words matter. They're not fluff. They are biochemical triggers. When you begin speaking this way daily, people around you will notice. Not because you're louder, but because you're more centered. Because you're radiating a kind of self-regulation that others instinctively respond to. That's the byproduct of consistent, constructive internal dialogue, emotional stability, the ability to stay grounded under pressure, not because you're suppressing emotion, but because you're directing it. You're not avoiding discomfort, you're organizing it through language. That's emotional fitness. That's what allows you to perform when others collapse. It's not genetic, It's trained, and it starts with how you talk to yourself in moments of uncertainty. Every peak performer in science, sport, combat, art has trained their internal dialogue. They don't just talk about grit, they speak grit. They don't just hope for discipline, they vocalize discipline. And they don't wait to feel unstoppable before they act unstoppable. They reverse, engineer belief. Action feeds belief, and language feeds action. If you want to rewire your patterns, don't just visualize the outcome, verbalize the path. Break it into steps, narrate those steps, then take them. Each time you do, you reinforce the loop. Language behavior reinforcement, that's the formula, that's the engine of transformation. Even your posture changes when you speak to yourself with power. Your spine lengthens, your breath deepens, that's not imaginary. That's the autonomic nervous system responding to internal cues. Confident language sends signals of safety. Safety opens capacity. So speak in ways that expand your capacity. Say, I'm ready for this, even if you feel nervous. Say, I'm steady, even if your heart is racing. That doesn't mean ignore danger. It means tell your body you're capable. You can feel the fear and still take control. That's what self-leadership is, choosing language that aligns your body and mind toward performance. Every time you say, I can't, your brain prepares for retreat, but if you follow it with, yet, everything changes. I can't do it yet. That word is tiny but powerful. It reopens the loop. It tells your neuroplasticity systems that learning is still possible, yet is a signal, a flag to the brain that says, keep going. Don't underestimate the impact of a single word. Over time, these microshifts in self-talk lead to macroscale changes in performance. This isn't magic, this is biology, and biology favors those who use language with intention. So choose your words the way a surgeon chooses a tool, carefully, skillfully, precisely, because each one sends a message not just to your mind, but to your muscles, your hormones, your breath, your drive. Language is leverage. Use it every morning, every night, and in the micro moments in between. That's the path, that's the method, that's how you reshape the narrative and redirect your life from the inside out. It's easy to assume that confidence is something that arrives before action, but that's not how the brain works. Confidence is a lagging indicator. It follows repetition. You don't need to feel confident to take action. You need to act in a way that is consistent with the person you're becoming. Every time you speak to yourself in a tone of ownership, your nervous system adapts to match that identity. The words you use become data points your brain records. It doesn't care whether they're true or not. It cares whether they're repeated. The more consistently you talk to yourself like someone who's resilient, focused, and intentional, the more your brain filters the world through that framework. Your biology doesn't distinguish between self-talk and external dialogue. What you say to yourself carries the same weight as what others say to you, sometimes more. That makes self-talk a tool, a weapon, a prescription. Use it like a professional. Don't wait for optimal conditions. If you do, you'll never build neural durability. The ability to speak constructively to yourself in suboptimal conditions is one of the highest performance skills a human can develop. When you're tired, when you're irritated, when nothing is going your way, that's when you lay the deepest wiring. If you only speak with intention when you're feeling good, your growth will always be limited by mood. But if you decide, in the moments when your emotions are misaligned with your goals, to still communicate with structure, you're training yourself for consistency under stress. That's the skill you want. Because the world doesn't wait for you to feel ready, your goals won't wait, your responsibilities won't wait. So don't let your internal language become a liability. Turn it into an asset, shape it. Direct it. Lock it into alignment with your values, not your impulses. This doesn't mean you need to be perfect. In fact, it's the opposite. Speak to yourself in a way that makes space for imperfection, but doesn't stop there. Say, that didn't go as planned, but I'm learning. That simple sentence activates neural pathways associated with resilience and future planning. It moves you from rumination to reflection, and that's a major difference. Rumination loops the past, reflection builds forward, so when something goes wrong, don't attack yourself. Don't flood your nervous system with negative loops. Interrupt it. Say, I can extract value from this. The brain is constantly deciding what to reinforce and what to discard. If you pair failure with internal attack, you reinforce avoidance. But if you pair failure with analysis and future focus, you train approach. That difference shows up in how you lead, in how you respond to setbacks, in how you bounce back when the pressure spikes. What you rehearse internally becomes your default externally. That's why your inner language needs to match the environments you want to succeed in. If you want to lead people, talk to yourself like a leader. Calm, direct, focused on clarity, not chaos. If you want to endure difficulty, speak to yourself like a competitor, not emotional, not dramatic, strategic. Self-talk is the warm-up for real performance. If you're inconsistent inside, you'll be erratic outside. So build a language protocol that you use consistently, statements that stabilize you, cues that ground you, commands that activate movement. Build them, refine them, repeat them. They become your operating system. The more you train that system, the less you're thrown off by circumstance. You don't rise to the level of motivation, you fall to the level of preparation. And language is a form of preparation. You prepare your nervous system for pressure by introducing it to the words that carry you through it. That's how soldiers train, that's how athletes train, that's how scientists in high-stakes environments train. Not by hoping they'll figure it out in the moment, but by drilling internal scripts that create structure in chaos. You can do the same, you must, because when the pressure comes, you won't have time to invent a mindset. You'll default to whatever you've rehearsed, so rehearse intentionally. Create the sentences you need when your energy drops, when your focus breaks, when your emotions flare. Use those sentences daily. Make them part of your rhythm. Then, when the storm comes, you'll be ready, not because you feel brave, but because you trained like someone who is. Your body listens to your words. When you say, I'm stuck, it constricts. Your muscles tighten, your breathing shortens. But when you say, I'm exploring options, your physiology opens, you stand taller, your breath steadies. This isn't poetic, it's measurable. EMG studies show that language affects muscle tone. Respiratory data shows that words shift breath cycles. Language shapes posture, and posture shapes confidence. So stop saying things that shrink you. Speak in a way that opens you up, that sends signals of readiness through your whole system. Say, I can handle this. Say, let's go. Say, next step. Don't wait for those words to feel right. Use them because they do something, because they change something, because they shift you from reactivity to intention. Even when you're in pain, you can use language to regulate. Pain is sensory. Suffering is narrative. You can't always control the sensation, but you can shape the interpretation. Say, this is intense, but it's passing. Say, I'm still functioning. These words don't deny reality. They direct it. They tell your brain that you're not just experiencing a signal, you're managing it, that keeps you from collapsing into helplessness. Helplessness is the enemy. It shuts down the systems of progress. But the moment you say, I'm in control of something, even if it's just breathe or posture or the next word you say, you reactivate the circuits of agency. That's how you keep moving. That's how you maintain presence when things hurt. Not by pretending it doesn't hurt, but by deciding that the hurt doesn't own you. Energy isn't just physical, it's linguistic. You can create momentum with words. When you say, I'm starting now, you generate a psychological edge. That's because the brain loves beginnings. It releases dopamine at the point of initiation. So don't wait for energy. Use language to create the signal. Say begin. Say next step. Say now. That act of verbal initiation primes the whole system. It shifts the brain from passive to active. Once you're active, your physiology follows. Movement begets movement. Action creates action, and it starts with a word. Speak the word that begins the process. Then let the process pull you forward. You can also use self-talk to modulate your intensity. There are moments for high output and moments for recovery. Language can help you shift gears when you're in execution mode, say, push, focus, lock in, short commands. Tighter language, this mirrors the state you need. When you're in recovery mode, shift to soft language, say, unwind, breathe, reset. This teaches your nervous system that words are cues, not just commentary. That's a game changer because it gives you control. It gives you levers. It gives you the ability to downshift and upshift at will. That's what elite performers do. They don't live in one mode. They transition skillfully. And they use language as the switch. You can even use self-talk retroactively after an event, after a tough conversation, after a success or failure. What you say to yourself determines how your brain stores the memory. If you say, "That was a disaster," the brain pairs it with shame, with avoidance, with withdrawal. But if you say, "That was useful, I'll apply it differently next time," the brain stores it as learning. That's a massive difference, because it dictates whether you grow from the experience or contract from it. Talk to yourself in a way that mines value from experience. That turns every event into training data. That way, nothing is wasted. Even your lowest points become leverage points, and don't underestimate the role of tone. You can say the right words with the wrong tone and lose the signal. Internal tone matters. Are you talking to yourself like a coach or a critic, like a mentor or a saboteur? You know the difference. You've heard both. One moves you forward, the other locks you in place. Be deliberate with tone. Even if it feels unnatural at first, speak with calm authority, not fake positivity, not empty hype, but solid, grounded, no-nonsense direction. That's what the nervous system respects. That's what builds trust between thought and action. Speak like someone you'd want leading you, then follow that voice. You don't need to do this perfectly. There will be days where you slip into old patterns, days where the voice is chaotic, defeated, unstructured. That's fine. The key is to catch it, to become aware, because awareness gives you the option to redirect. Without awareness, the voice runs you. With awareness, you can shape it. That's why mindfulness and self-talk are deeply connected. Mindfulness isn't just breathe, that's noticing the narrative. It's tracking the story you're telling and choosing to edit it when necessary. The story isn't fixed, it's live. And every word you say is a vote for the next version of it. So make your votes count, make them consistent, make them deliberate. There's no shortcut here. This is a practice, a repetition, a set of reps like anything else. You do it daily, you mess it up, you correct. You repeat, and slowly the voice becomes your ally, not your enemy, not your limiter, but your driver, your stabilizer, your system of internal leadership. That's what this is about. It's not just about motivation. It's about becoming someone whose internal dialogue reflects the external life they're building. Someone whose words create structure, power, and progress. Someone who talks to themselves in a way that builds the future. 7 days at a time, one sentence at a time. You have to learn how to be your own authority, especially when things are uncertain. The brain craves certainty, and when it doesn't find it externally, it scans internally. That's why internal dialogue matters so much. When you provide certainty through language, "I've done hard things before. I know how to move through this. I'll adapt." You reduce the threat signal. You restore clarity. This is not fake assurance. It's functional regulation. You don't need to lie to yourself. You just need to remind yourself of what's real and repeatable. What's real is that you've survived everything up to this point. What's real is that you are trainable. What's repeatable is effort, consistency, discipline. Talk to yourself from that place, from data, from truth. That's how you earn the right to trust your voice. That's how you make it believable, because believability is key. The more congruent your internal statements are with your lived actions, the more powerful those statements become. If you say you're committed and you follow through, your brain flags that as evidence. If you say it and don't follow through, it flags that as noise. So pair self-talk with behavior, lock it together. Say, "I finish what I start," then finish. Say, I keep promises to myself, then keep them. Even small ones, especially small ones, that's how you train integrity, not moral integrity, neural integrity. You're building a feedback loop where words match action and action matches words. That creates momentum. That creates reliability, and that's what allows you to scale your performance under stress. You're not trying to be superhuman, you're trying to be consistent. That's what the brain respects: patterns. Predictable, repeatable cues. Every time you say, "I begin now," and actually begin, you're reinforcing a loop. That loop becomes a track. That track becomes a road. Eventually, you don't need to think about it. The self-talk becomes instinctive, but you have to wire it first. You have to do the manual installation. Don't rely on inspiration for this. Rely on reps. Every sentence you say with purpose is a rep. Every redirect away from chaos toward structure is a rep. You're not trying to feel good. You're trying to wire direction. Do that enough and the good feelings follow, because forward motion creates chemistry. Accomplishment shifts neurochemistry. Forward movement isn't the reward. It's the signal for the reward system to activate. This is especially important during delay periods. When you're waiting, when progress feels slow. That's when internal noise gets loud. That's when doubt and delay hijack focus. This is when you say, "Keep steady," or "Focus on what's in my control." These phrases are like mental anchors. They prevent drift. They reduce mental chatter by giving the brain a single point to stabilize around. When the mind wanders, language is the tether. It brings attention back to signal, because attention, like muscle, fatigues. You don't just need focus. You need focus that knows where to go. Self-talk provides that guidance. You don't need to suppress distraction. You need to redirect it. You need to provide a more compelling narrative than the default noise. That's why you keep repeating key phrases. That's why you build a system of verbal triggers that align with your goals. One of the most powerful things you can say to yourself daily is, "This is who I am becoming." That sentence connects effort to identity. It transforms tasks from obligation into alignment. You're no longer just doing things, you're becoming someone. The brain responds to that. Identity-based language has a stronger neural impact than task-based language. When you say, "I'm the type of person who finishes what I start," you're telling your brain to look for evidence that supports that identity. The reticular activating system in your brainstem begins filtering input to match that claim. This isn't motivational fluff. This is neurocognitive filtering. What you say about yourself becomes what your brain looks for. So say it clearly, say it like you mean it, then act in a way that reinforces it. The goal isn't to drown out negative thoughts. It's to outnumber them, to crowd them out with deliberate statements. This is why repetition matters. Your brain runs on frequency. The more often you say something with intention, the stronger the neural trace becomes. You can't expect one positive phrase to overpower 1,000 passive or anxious thoughts. You have to flood the system, not with empty hype, but with structure, with clarity, with decisive statements. You have to program the language of movement again and again until it becomes default. Don't say, "I hope I'm consistent." Say, "I build consistency through action." Don't say, "I wish I had more discipline." Say, "Discipline is what I do, regardless of how I feel." Over time, these phrases change your baseline. They become part of your cognitive framework. There will always be moments where your energy dips. That's not a problem, it's a cue. Use those dips as training reps. When your energy is low, speak low and clear. Say, "Slow but forward." Say, "Control the pace." That internal tone matches the state while still pushing progress. That's intelligent self-talk. You don't always need intensity. You need alignment. Sometimes alignment looks like a whisper. Sometimes it looks like stillness with structure. What matters is that you stay in charge, that you don't surrender the wheel to momentary emotion. That's what separates people who sustain momentum from people who burn out. It's not raw force. It's internal steering. It's language that meets the moment and directs it forward. Your nervous system doesn't need you to be fearless. It needs you to be functional. Fear will show up, pressure will show up, But if you respond with clear, constructive internal language, you reduce the stress signal. You create a loop where fear is acknowledged but not fed. This is critical. The moment you start narrating your fear over and over, I'm scared, I'm anxious, I'm not ready, you amplify it. But if you say, yes, this is fear, and I still move, you disarm it. You can move while afraid. You can speak structure into chaos. The fear doesn't go away, but it loses its leadership role. You put it in the passenger seat. That's a skill, one that you train through self-talk, sentence by sentence, day after day. This is why 7 days of deliberate self-talk isn't trivial. It's foundational. 7 days is enough to interrupt your default scripts. It's enough to insert new cues, and once you have cues, you can build routines. Once you have routines, you build momentum, then it scales, but it starts with those first sentences. With that first morning where you wake up and instead of grabbing your phone, you say, "This day is mine." Instead of scrolling into randomness, you speak into rhythm. That's when the change begins, not with the big wins, but with the small words that tell your brain, we're going in a new direction. Don't overcomplicate it. 3 to 5 key phrases. Repeat them every day. Adjust the tone to match the moment. Pair the words with action. Reinforce, reinforce, reinforce. Your nervous system will do the rest. It will begin to adapt to the input. And when it does, you'll notice subtle shift. More clarity under pressure, less emotional volatility, faster recovery from setbacks. These are the signs that your internal language is working. You won't need to force it forever. It will become part of you, but it begins with practice, repetition, precision, 7 days of focus, 7 days of input, 7 days of shifting the narrative, and when the 7th day ends, you don't stop. You continue because now you have momentum, now you've built the scaffolding. You'll feel the difference, not just in how you perform, but in how you experience life. Challenges won't feel as chaotic. Wins won't feel as random. You'll be more centered because your words will be aligned with your direction. Your voice will be a tool, not a trigger. That's the power of talking to yourself like this. Not just for motivation, but for evolution, not just for confidence, but for capacity. This is how you train a mind that can lead a body that can move a life. Keep saying the words, keep directing the path. Your biology will listen, your mind will adjust, and your world will shift, starting with your voice.